Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever time of day it is. Thank you for tuning in to the Conversations with Dr. Don show. The show is produced and broadcast from Portland, Oregon, USA. And for your first-time viewers, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of one-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals and about whatever it is that we have decided to talk about. And I always laugh when I do this intro because I always blew it in the last line. And my guest this evening is Dr. Bob Seward, medical doctor. And
Retired.
Retired, yes. And how are you feeling right now?
I'm feeling great.
Yeah, you're looking good. Yeah, it's been
Thank
a while
you.
since we got together. The title of the show is Revisit Mad as Hell Doctors. Now, we'll talk about where that title came from. We're revisiting it because we've talked about Mad as Hell Doctors, that organization, over the years, and I've stayed in touch, pretty close touch with some of the members of that original tribe. And Bob and I have been talking off and on and staying on top of that issue, what's happening with healthcare and what should be happening and all those kinds of things. Do you remember those early days when we were had a bus and was doing all kinds of stuff in Mad as Hell Doctors?
Yeah, it was very exciting.
Yeah, yeah. So say a few words about Mad as Hell Doctors.
Well, we started, the genesis of the group was we were listening to Ron Wyden talk about healthcare out in Forest Grove at the City Hall.
Senator Ron Wyden.
Correct.
Yeah.
And halfway through his talk, he had a healthcare bill with Senator Bennett from Utah at the time. Mm-hmm. And I just went to listen, and halfway through the program, the speech, 4 gentlemen got up with white coats and walked behind him. They had stethoscopes, and they held up a sign that said single payer healthcare. And it was kind of a little bit of a rebellion there. But he was very calm, and he kept giving a speech. At the end of the show, or at the end of the speech, I met with these other doctors, and then we met again. We were all upset that the American people didn't seem to know that the tragedy that was going on is that we had thousands of people dying.
How long ago was that speech?
2009.
2009. Please go on.
And we met, and then we decided to go across the country. Adam Klugman had an idea based on the movie Network, Mad as Hell, and Mad as Hell, I'm not going to take it anymore.
Yes.
We call ourselves the Mad as Hell Doctors because we thought we needed to do something to get the attention of the American people. Mm-hmm. So we went across the country. We did it. I think the first year we did like 40 town halls. We met in union halls, churches, homes, all across the country, and ended up in Washington, D.C., in Lafayette Park, right across from the White House. Mm-hmm. And we each got up, we told our story, why we were mad as hell, the person or the patient that we had seen that was suffering. Then we listened. More important than that, half of our program was usually an hour long. We listened to people. We call it the Mad as Hell Minute. They got up and they lined up and told their stories. Mm-hmm. And you could see the fear in their eyes. I had breast cancer. I'm on Cobra. What happens if the breast cancer comes back? I can't afford these payments. We heard a story there's just all kinds of stories of people that were suffering.
About medical care and
right.
How
and people
inadequate it was.
And then Mike Huntington, his story was one of the best ones, a true story. Mike Huntington is really the leader of the group. He has continued with the mission, and Mad as Hell Doctors is morphed into a big organization here in Oregon called Health Care for All of Oregon, HCAO.org. You can look that up. Mike's story says it all. He said he had a patient that came in, a man in his 50s that he saw who had no health care, no health insurance. Mm-hmm. He went to his doctor with pain in his throat. And unfortunately, they found he had throat cancer. And Mike remembers the conversation with the man and his wife. They were sitting in a room, the three of them, and the man with the cancer turned to his wife and he says, "Honey, I don't think I'm going to go through the treatment because there's no guarantee that it's going to help me, and they're not going to take our house."
So that was
his story. In other words, I'm going to die before I'm going to go bankrupt.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what people are facing still, but it was worse then. So we came back, we did more town halls in Oregon. They set up a website, although it's not very active now. And Mike continued every day. He's the hero. He's a quiet guy, but he's very smart.
I remember him, yeah.
Yeah. And he developed this organization called healthcareforalloforegon.org, HCAORG. They just had a meeting down in Salem, and this is a formidable organization now. Mm-hmm. It's no longer it's an umbrella group of nurses, union people, teachers, healthcare professionals, concerned citizens, people in the medical field. It's an umbrella group of about 80 organizations, and it's now one organization, and it's a force to itself. And they have introduced a single payer bill in the Oregon legislature already.
Mm-hmm.
This is the third time, and it's gaining momentum.
You
So
think it's going to pass?
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I know that the organization, the force, is not slowing down. It's picking up speed.
Mm-hmm.
People aren't going to stop until we get single payer, until we get justice. You know.
Is the Washington's behavior and Donald Trump having any influence on whether this bill will pass? That's a whole other subject.
Yeah,
We'll get into that
that's a
later
whole
on.
other subject. I will say that one point that the doctors in this group weren't for Obamacare. They didn't want Obamacare because Obamacare uses partially market forces and profit.
And the insurance companies.
Right, and the physicians in this group and the other people want a nonprofit system. They don't want health. They want a service model for healthcare like they have in Canada. I was for Obamacare because I thought it was a start and was all we could do.
Always a start.
And what's happened is it's been a tremendous success. It's saved thousands of lives. Mm-hmm. Thousands of lives have been improved. Millions of people have insurance. And the beauty of it, Obamacare, is that we're in a different situation now. In 2009, 85% of the American people had health care, and so they didn't care. But why are people so upset? You know, it's when you have health care, it's hard to understand. Mm-hmm. Now it's different. Now people have health care under Obamacare, and now they're trying to take it away from them.
Yeah.
And now they're starting to get it. Oh, really? Yeah, you're not taking my health care. Uh-huh. And so now you have millions of people that are starting to think about, you know, maybe health care is a right. You know, I shouldn't have to go bankrupt.
Let's hope it goes in that direction.
Yeah, and you can see now the situation in Washington. What's turned it around and is helping, may save Obamacare, I hope it does, is thousands of people are involved. People in wheelchairs are going into their offices in Washington, D.C. They're having protests. The people are rising up. And the media is starting to catch on. Oh, healthcare saves lives. The media has totally failed in trying to educate and try to explain how important healthcare is to people.
So that this small organization initially has blossomed and has gotten very big, and it's probably even having an influence on citizens around the country in terms of healthcare and healthcare being considered a human right rather than a business proposition or a model of capitalism or whatever.
Exactly, and another factor that's very important is Bernie Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
He made healthcare a centerpiece of his platform.
Well, Bernie Sanders is a socialist. What do you mean mentioning his name?
I know. That's what we want. Thank God.
And you guys included me in the organization
Exactly.
early on, so I was sort of an honor to remember. I'm just a PhD and not an MD.
He forced Hillary to include a lot of these things in her remember?
Yeah.
She took 80% of what Bernie wanted and put it in her platform, including lowering Medicare age to like 50, putting in the public option. All those things are because Bernie was out there selling this and explaining to people.
And he's not done yet.
I hope not. He looks good to me.
Let's get to your bio segment, and then we'll talk about the other stuff.
Okay.
All right. So if you remember, we have a standard bunch of questions I ask, and sometimes I'll ask a question of a guest, and the guest doesn't want to answer, and you say, I don't want to answer that, or get lost or whatever. So usually I'm a pretty good judge on what's appropriate, and sometimes I'm not, so just kick me under the table, if you will, okay?
Okay.
All right. So if I were to ask your best friend, who is Bob? What would your best friend say? Be your best friend. Bob is what? Bob is, be the first person.
Bob is a good friend of mine. He, I don't know, he likes music. He, he's an honest person. He has a good sense of humor. And he's interested in a lot of things. He's not that good a golfer, although he likes golf. and
he's not too proud.
And he's a family man. And I just enjoy being around him. He seems to enjoy life.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to explain it.
That sounds wonderful, yeah. I bet you have a lot of friends who think that way about you.
Hopefully.
I can tell by the look in your eye. So when and where were you born?
I was born in near where your wife was born. I was born 18 miles west of Oshkosh, Wisconsin, little farm town.
Did you hear that, Pat? You'll see this later on.
Yeah. And it's a town of about 5,000. My father was a family physician, surgeon. He was kind of a bull of the woods, take charge guy, raised on a farm, but he had and he was really smart, but he had a big heart, very generous man, and he cared about people. My parents were Democrats, fierce Democrats. They led the recall movement against Joe McCarthy back when people thought they called my dad kind of a pinko back then. But I mean, he was an independent person, independent thinker.
Do you have a big heart?
Yeah, I think so.
I'll interrupt you now.
Yeah, but no, that's so I kind of backed into medicine. He was kind of my hero, and I ended up in medicine. And initially I hated medical school, but once I got trained, I knew what I was doing, or thought I did. I really started to enjoy it because I like people, and it's like being a priest or a minister or social worker. People let you into their lives because you see things, you learn things
and
that
maybe sense things more than the average person does.
I was in private practice for 15 years, and it was great. Then I got into the VA, and that had a profound impact on me because I was drafted out of medical school in '68. And that's not the real thing because doctors are protected and pampered. I didn't have to go to a rice paddy and go to, kill people. And I was stationed in Southern California for 2 years. And that experience was a great experience because I met a lot of people of different races from all over the country. They don't care who your old man is. You're judged for yourself. Can you do the job on the team or not?
Mm-hmm.
So that was a great experience. Then I left, I went into private practice, and I didn't understand Vietnam. When I got out, I thought maybe it was a good thing. We stopped them over there so they don't come over here. I voted Republican. This is back in the 80s.
Hindsight now, how do you view it now, Vietnam?
Well, what changed my whole life was when I got into the Veterans Hospital in '89. And I started talking to veterans, and I didn't even know what PTSD was. I really didn't. And after the real combat veterans don't talk about it. They don't even tell their wife about it. That's one of the tragedies of war.
I've had a few of those on as guests, yeah.
And after they get comfortable with you for a year or so, one day you ask them, what happened over there? And it just pours out. It's like you push a button and it just gushes out. They're reliving the memories. The plane was spinning in the air. I couldn't get to the bomb bay door. The captain and crew was killed. There was flares coming up.
And you recall those interviews?
Yeah, I mean, I should have written them all down, but they're very powerful stories. And then I started to listen to what happened in Vietnam, and I realized it was a terrible mistake. Terrible, horrible. And that changed my whole way of thinking. But that's a privilege that a lot of people don't have, that I had because I'm a physician, and I was able to learn that from them. You know, the average person, family member, doesn't even learn that. They won't hear these stories. That's how bad it was. When somebody doesn't talk about it, you know it was bad.
How'd you get that big heart you mentioned earlier, or I mentioned earlier on? Where'd that come from? Mom, Dad,
Mom.
or somebody? Mom?
Mom and Dad.
Yeah.
My dad put kids through college without ever telling anybody about it. They donated land to the city for a golf course. He helped build a hospital in town with his money. They cared about migrants. They tried to take in some children after I left to raise. It didn't work out, but they both were caring people. My mother was a nurse, and very kind-hearted. My dad was tough, though. I saw him break a horse once that was threatening to roll over on him. I mean, he was a physical man, but he was also very kind and generous. Mm-hmm. I think that's where I had leadership at home. I was lucky.
So that's
the only difference between me and some kid out here homeless is luck. I was lucky that I was born into the family. I had the opportunities to do things that a lot of kids don't.
Talking about born, why were you born?
Well, thank God somebody was having fun.
Yeah, that's a good enough reason. Sometimes people have all sorts of answers to that question, and now and then it's a surprising one. And I'm always looking for surprises.
It is kind of a mystery when you think about it, that we start out as these little cells, that you can't even see under a microscope.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's the biology, huh?
And then it blossoms into a person. It's amazing. Life is amazing.
Is there any other reason other than biology, the reason that you, Bob, were born? Is there a reason? Is there a purpose?
I know that's a tough one to answer.
You betcha. That's why I asked you.
I have to think about that one.
I must confess, now and then I have an answer for you because I've been doing it for 17 years. Mm-hmm. I was born to be nice. When I was very small, the mantra I heard all the time was, bottom line, after all kinds of chewing out or whatever else, boy, be nice.
See, you were lucky too.
Yeah.
You had that leadership at home.
Yeah.
Somebody told you that.
The modeling.
The modeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was the 12th child of a whole bunch of them.
So you have to be an independent person too then.
Oh yeah.
You have to take care of yourself. You have one of 12.
Yeah, so so that's why I was born now.
You know, it's been raised as an interesting thought.
What?
We formed a support group after Trump won. There was like 15 people in the Democratic Party. We met every 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And the first meeting we had, people just vented their emotions. They were sick. They felt sick to their stomach. We talked, there was about 15 of us. We talked for about an hour and a half. And one of the gals in the group, Barb Glazer, she's a retired psychiatric nurse, teacher, and she said, we were kind of despairing, and she said, we were made for these times. We were made for these times. In other words, it's up to us now. We know what to do in this situation. And so the rest of the meetings we talked about, but it reminds me of what you said.
Yeah.
You were born to be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know where that came from. I just believe that it's true because I feel satisfied. I feel good. I feel like I feel validated or something.
You know, there's something that I've learned in medicine.
Yeah.
There's a deeper satisfaction in helping other people that it's hard to get at anything else in life. It's the same thing as being a teacher, you know, or a nurse, you know, social worker, helping other people. There's a deeper satisfaction in that.
Oh yes. Oh, yeah.
It puts a smile on your face.
Anything about your national or cultural heritage or even racial heritage comes to mind that would be of interest to the viewers when they see you, Bob Seward, sitting here talking? Anything of significance that would...
Well, I would say right off the top, my parents were Christian. My dad was a church, went to the Church of the Green on Sunday. That's the golf course. My mother went to church. And they didn't wear their religion on their sleeve. They were Congregationals. Congregationals, if you know, it's now the United Church of Christ.
Mm-hmm.
They don't do a yelling and screaming. You know, there's none of that. They're very quiet. They believe that Christianity is known through your works, what you do, and that's what I learned at home from my parents. It's also interesting, I got that from my grandfather, who was a real churchman, and my great uncle, Edwin Seward, went to Yale Divinity School, and in 1850 he moved out to Wisconsin, then he was an abolitionist, set up an abolitionist church in Lake Mills. So I have the lineage in my family of being for racial justice.
Uh-huh.
You know, so I mean, it's just like I said, I lucked out.
Yeah. And you have a wife, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, whatever. Got to cover all the bases, you know. Divorced, huh?
Divorced. Yep.
How long you been single? Roughly.
25 years, maybe.
Are you available for getting married again? Tell the viewers if you are.
Yeah. Probably. Friendship? Probably not.
25. My gosh. Tell me what year you were born in again?
1940.
40. Oh, yeah.
I'm getting up in the geezer category. The fourth quarter.
Been there.
Hopefully it's the early part of the fourth quarter.
Yeah. How about children, grandchildren? You have any of those?
I have 3 children. My oldest daughter, Christy, lives in Forest Grove. That's why I live here. When I retired, I knew that if I was going to be around my grandkids, I'd have to be near my kids. And so my daughter Lori lives in Bellingham. That's too far north. My son lives in Seattle. That's too much congestion. And
so
Oregon's perfect because they have Powell's bookstore, they have golf courses, they have bike paths, they have my daughter and her grandson, And they have, I mean, I can be outside doing things 12 months a year.
No.
And the politics are liberal.
Don't say anymore, because so many of those people out there are looking for some place to retire to.
Yeah.
And we were getting overcrowded with these people from out of
Yeah,
state.
you're right.
And I love it.
Yeah.
I've been here for a while. Grandchildren, how many of those you got?
4 grandsons.
Yeah.
No granddaughters.
Yeah. Do they like Grandpa?
Well, the one in Seattle, Seattle's 5.5, and I don't see him, so he knows who I am, and I go up there as much as I can. The other 2 are really independent, and I don't see them. I probably should see them. I only see them 3 times a year. They know who I am, but I don't have a relationship like with my parents.
Yeah.
I think that will happen.
Yeah. And I got a question I'm reluctant to ask you, because I know what the answer is. Your political persuasion, are you a Trump supporter or a
No.
right-winger, a Tea
No,
Party?
I
or
would
what?
say I'm a progressive,
Uh-huh.
and I believe in that the preamble to the Constitution says what I believe in pretty much. We the people. I believe in a democracy, doing things by consensus. A more perfect union. I think we should be together.
Yeah.
Establish justice. That's maybe the most important thing. Rule of law, civil and criminal courts, basic human rights, no discrimination, level playing field, common defense, a domestic tranquility, safe neighborhoods, and then general welfare. I believe I'm pretty much aligned with Abraham Lincoln. He said, the object of government is to do for the people what they need to have done, but which they cannot do for themselves. There are many such things: roads, bridges, schools, providing for the helpless, young, and afflicted, and civil and criminal courts. That was Abraham Lincoln. And I believe that's the role our government has. There's many things we can't do for ourselves. We have to do together.
Of course.
And that's the Democratic Party. That's the progressive vision. That's Bernie Sanders. And plus, I want to add one thing.
What?
I believe in science.
Uh-huh.
So I would say the preamble, I believe our government is an opportunity system. Our government creates opportunity. For instance, after World War II, we had the GI Bill, right? That was a
Yes.
government program. Oh, terrible government program.
Socialism.
How many people benefit from that?
Yes.
Tremendous. So our government should educate, should help do roads and bridges, and have a justice system, and have a foreign policy that's just. So that's how I look at it. That's my politics. I think, and we can get into this later, I think conservatism is kind of a cult. It's a doctrine of selfishness that says, I want a limited government. We think that'll give you opportunity. Well, that doesn't work out that well. The more you limit government, the less opportunity there is for people.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
We need 2 more hours, you and me.
Yeah.
But I'm going to ask you one more question before we take a break.
Yeah, sure.
And then go into the main part of the interview. Any people alive today or dead who you particularly admired or look up to? Any heroes come to mind for you?
Yeah.
Name me 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5, or whatever. And why?
Tim Zimmerman, who was a physician that I practiced with for 15 years, who is one of the finest, most courageous men I've ever known. He was 4 years ahead of me in medical school.
Tim Zimmerman.
Tim Zimmerman. He grew up in Wisconsin. He trained. He was a top guy in his class. So that's not me. He was a top guy in his class. He went out to Seattle and trained, and he went back and went into family practice in Westby, Wisconsin. And one night in 1969, his car went off the road, and he was paralyzed from the waist down at age 33.
33.
Yeah, he had three children, and he was paralyzed from the waist down. But it didn't stop him. He laid in a striker frame for a year, healing up. Then he went back to Seattle, took a residency in medicine, took a residency in nuclear medicine, and he came up to Mount Vernon and practiced out of a wheelchair for 30 years. And he was the kindest person and the strongest person that I've known. Another hero, both my parents. Another one was the Dr. Savage, who did heart surgery on me in 1986.
On you?
Yep.
You had, they went in there on you? Heart surgery?
Yep, I had the big zipper.
Oh my gosh.
And I would say other heroes, Martin Luther King, Jackie Robinson, some of the black sports heroes, because of what they overcame. And to me, they're very inspiring. I think Martin Luther King, you know, there's a reason that he has a monument between Jefferson and Lincoln, you know.
Yes.
He's a giant.
Great
but it's
observation.
not just him. There are many. Who else? As far as, I think it's those are the ones that I look up to the most.
Thank you, yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I added Jesus and Gandhi, because I'm a recovering Catholic, as you know.
I like that.
You still practice your religion at all? Or you're pretty much irreligious?
I'm a member of the AME Church in Northeast Portland.
Mm-hmm.
I went over there 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago now, just because I like music. I like black church music, among other forms of black music. And where do I listen to that? I was going to the Unitarian Church. So I thought, I just looked at black church. I picked one out at random to go over and listen to music.
Yeah.
I've been going back ever since.
Good for you.
Yeah. And the minister there at the time, Reverend Carter, he said, what are you all about? I said, well, I'm about health care. He said, well, you don't want to talk about it? I said, sure. So he gave me 15 minutes one Sunday. I think the people there are kind of checking me out. What's this white dude doing here? You know, what's his deal?
Yeah. And you gave him a treat or a surprise? Or
well,
whatever?
I gave him a 15-minute Matt Hell doctrine, Matt Hell lecture, you know. And then I kept going back to listen to the music. Then they asked me to go in the choir, and I was in there for a while. And then the men's group asked me. And it's been very inspiring for me. I've learned something a little more about the black community that I had no idea what was going on. I don't think most white people do. You know, and so I lucked out. And so I've met a lot of great people there. I've learned a lot. I've been inspired. So that's where I go now. And this last Sunday, one of the guys in the group, in the church, I didn't know he was musical. He gets up and he's in this group called the Beyonds, Beyonds. Never heard of them.
Mm-hmm.
And he did the keyboard arrangement, and then he got up and sang. It's like professional stuff. It's amazing. So, and they have as you know, in most black churches, and many of them, they have a Hammond organ, and they have a piano, and they have a drummer.
Yeah, yeah.
The guy that plays the Hammond organ, Tim Stafford, I think his name is, he's white. He grew up near Chicago, okay? He's about probably my age or a little older. And his dad was a minister. One night, he's listening to AM radio from Chicago. He lives in Indiana. He heard this black church. Wow. Listen to that. Holy cow. What are they doing there?
You white boys been missing a lot.
He went over there and learned and he's been playing in this church for 40 years. He's a professional musician. He's played at Blazer games. He's played the organ down at the Blazer games. The guy's a professional piano player, but he can bring it.
Well, we better stop now before they yell at me.
So anyway,
and then we'll get to the main
that's
part.
how I got to the AME.
Let's take a break, Mr. E, and then we'll come back and talk some more about other interesting, good stuff. Fine. Okay, we're back. Thanks for staying tuned. And for you viewers who missed the opening of the show, Conversations with Dr. Don that you're watching is an ongoing series of 1-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals and about whatever it is we have decided to talk about tonight. And Bob and I are going to talk some more about other stuff other than who he is and my few words about myself and who I am. And health care and why Hillary lost. That's one of the questions we have here. And the brainwashed electorate and racism and a whole bunch of other stuff we've talked about. So, and you got a couple of books here that were interesting enough for you to bring here to show me. Well, you want to talk about one of those books, or
okay.
Hillary, or healthcare, or whatever?
This comes into the Hillary thing.
All right. You got
Loudest Voice in the Room. It's about Roger Ailes and Fox News.
Oh boy, that should be interesting.
Well, you know, I will say this. One of the things they teach you in medical school is to, when a patient comes in, to try to think of the underlying pathophysiology. What could be going on inside, not just the obvious. Somebody comes in with a rash, you treat it. Why do they have their rash? Do they have an immune problem? Do they have AIDS? Do they have, or if they're losing weight, I mean, or whatever.
You got to go beyond what you just see.
Yeah, you try to see the underlying cause. And I think that's what we look at this election. I think I know the underlying reason we lost this election. And it's not what they said. It comes from my own personal experience. In 2008, I was back in Wisconsin knocking on doors for Obama. And I heard a lot of people, white people, saying really kind of stupid things. And I could tell they were listening to Fox. It was all these Fox talking points. So I kind of filed that away. And then in 2012, I went back there and I was campaigning for Russ Feingold, who was running for senator.
Great man.
Great man. And I was knocking on doors. I was with the Democrats, and this was our mission. Knock on Democratic doors, knock on independent doors in these little small rural towns around Madison. White people, Democrats. And Lake Mills, Jefferson, Janesville, where Paul Ryan is from, Watertown, all Cambridge, all these little towns. I knocked on hundreds of doors. And this was, or was it 2000? I guess it was 2010, not 12, 2010. Obama had been in office for 2 years. And the racist comments coming out of these white people's mouths about Obama shocked me. And then I said, they're listening, I can tell they're listening to Fox, or Rush Limbaugh. It's just these little phrases. Oh, he's a tax and spend liberal. You know, they get that from the radio. And The other thing that I noticed was that all the radio stations in Wisconsin had all AM were saturated with right-wing talkers.
Yeah.
There's nothing else. They had one liberal. They had Ed Schultz and Madison, and they had another little show in Stevens Point. Everything else was either right-wing, Rush Limbaugh, Hannity, all these horrible people, or they had the evangelical Christians, you know, the Pat Robertsons, and they had FM and sports. But these people listened to that all day long, 24 hours a day. What were they hearing from Rush Limbaugh? Our government's terrible. Science is bad. Liberals are ruining the world. Our government is bad, and the problem is we have too big a government. And then they just lie.
Do things ever change? Isn't that what's going on in Washington today?
Right. And so when Walker won, that was the same year, 2000. Scott Walker won, and I marched back there against Walker with 100,000 people. I had the best sign. You know what it said?
No.
Foxed up brains elected Walker. Foxed. And that's what happened. The people in this, and it's not just Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, and all through the rural parts in eastern Oregon, they listened to Rush Limbaugh, and they have been indoctrinated. This is what happened. This is why I say, for 20 years, they've been indoctrinated by Fox, which is in every living room, Fox and right-wing radio. They've been indoctrinated, and these people, they've checked them. They know the people who watch Fox know less than people who don't watch anything. They're misinformed. And these are the people that elected Trump. I mean, if it wasn't Trump, it would have been somebody else. It's a dumbed-down electorate.
How did they get misinformed?
Well, I mean, they listen. Apparently, you haven't listened to right-wing radio. It's pretty awful.
Oh, yes, I do enough to know what you're talking about. Yeah. But how is it that the system or people or this government is such that the media, that people, the only thing that's available for them, unless they make a serious effort,
they're very good.
I mean,
these guys are brilliant marketers and they sell racism. They sell racism and hate.
Why do they
Obama was perfect for him.
I love why. That's my favorite word
Money.
in English language. Why? Well, why? Money. Oh, yep. Okay. Why is money so important? That's why I'm a socialist. Because money is secondary important.
Yeah.
Human welfare is first, in my judgment.
If you look, even Ailes admitted, Roger Ailes founded Fox News, that in the end, it was mainly about money. And so these people, the white people, the whites are the only one that listen to these stuff. Only 2% of their audience is black. Very few Latino people listen. They know what a faker is.
Yeah, you can smell them.
Right, because black people have been lied to for years, and same with Mexicans and minorities.
And they learned many, many years ago during slavery times, don't listen to what they're saying. Pay attention with other senses.
Exactly.
It's like a little baby when a guy comes to the front door and mom opens the door and he looks at him, doesn't have to look too long, and he'll know whether it's safe to talk to him or not, because they can smell a rat, and worse.
You're right. So well, I mean, this is
black people. For generations, they've learned how to tell. So I'm okay. Go ahead.
So you're agreeing with me?
Of course.
Yeah, because the audience is all white, and so they use racism. All these guys driving around in their tractors and milk and their trucks are listening to this racist stuff about Obama, the lies about him. Obama was perfect for these guys. I mean, they made tons of money off of scaring white people. Yeah. You know. But unfortunately, they lied to people, and now it's this electorate that has been dumbed down. They're still with Trump. They don't believe. They think Russian stuff is a hoax. This is how you know you're brainwashed when facts don't matter, and facts don't matter to this whole group of people.
Because in the background of these people, his supporters, there is another motivation, another fear that's lurking in the background that they're not even recognizing. And the Trump regime is promoting the idea that it's those non-white people, those are blacks, the welfare moms,
Yep.
the Mexicans across the border,
Yeah.
the Muslims,
Yeah.
and they'll find another scapegoat so that you don't look at the reality of who is responsible for their position in life and their children and grandchildren having no future. Now I'm on my soapbox.
No, you're absolutely
That's
right.
how I see it. So what are we going to do about this situation? What are we
Well,
doing other than...
I think the first thing, this is why I think it's important that the media back east, let's not blame the Democrats. Let's not blame Hillary. It's important that we not blame ourselves. Because what happened was a few evil men, Murdoch and Ailes and some of these guys, they're sociopaths, take over the media and just lie and make money off of it. That's what happened. So let's recognize that Fox is doing what it's doing, but let's not beat up ourselves. We're good. Look at Bernie Sanders. All the issues we talked about: healthcare, education, income inequality, racial justice, Black Lives Matter, immigration. We know what's right.
He came out of the woodwork from somewhere, Bernie Sanders.
Well, the thing is, let's not blame ourselves. Let's believe in the Constitution, believe in the preamble, believe in our progressive government, and believe in making the world a better place, and we'll be fine. But I don't think we should spend a lot of time. I don't think these people are going to change their minds real quick.
Some people are saying that Hillary didn't really lose the election, that it was stolen by the manipulations behind the scenes.
There are many things, I think. I mean, this is just one factor. I think you're right. Gerrymandering, voter suppression, just this whole thing with the voting machines, what they did at Kansas, and I mean, there's a lot of factors. I think this is one of the, and that's a good point. There are things we can do about gerrymandering, which Obama's working on, voter suppression.
And the present regime is working to perpetuate those things. It's taking a long time.
Yeah.
Is racial hatred behind very powerful the message that the
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think what we can do. Look at the women's. We got to elect more women. Look at the women's march. You probably went to it.
Mm-hmm.
I went with my daughter. It was awesome. And
it's time for matriarchy for a change.
Yeah, people are running for office. More women are running for office. There's a guy named Randy Bryce is running against Paul Ryan, and he's an iron worker. And we've got two great people, Keith Ellison, Tom Perez.
Mm-hmm.
They're both great. I love them both. And so we just have to keep going. But I think after the women's march, I was inspired. I said, we're going to be okay. We're going to make it now.
We're going to make it now. What are we going to do to take care of the influence and the power that this present regime in Washington has, and what they're doing? And it's really a coup, a quiet coup that has the present regime and Trump and all of his people around him. They're all extreme right-wingers and extremely rich. So what are we going to do to overcome that? And is it going to end up in climate denial? Is it going to be so important that we're going to self-destruct? Is there going to be a World War III, a nuclear conflagration as a result of North Korea? What is going to be the outcome? How are we going to change things and turn them around before it gets to one of those suggestions I offered a moment ago? Is going to happen to us as human beings? A sixth extinction?
No, I think we're going to. I think that this is. My daughter said the morning after the election. She said this is a wake-up call, Dad.
Okay.
And this is bringing. I heard Barney Frank say this.
I love Barney.
I know too. He said, people have been trashing our government for the last 20 years. Oh, the government's terrible. He said there's something worse than that. The worse than that is no government.
Anarchy.
Yeah. So people are starting to wake up. They're looking at the healthcare thing. They're saying, You know, it's not right that people don't have health care. So we just have to keep going. I think we have to, it's going to be struggle, but you know, every generation has a struggle in this country. That's why the black experience has been so inspiring. You know, think about it was worse when Martin Luther King, I mean, think about John Lewis.
In some ways, worse.
Yeah.
In some ways, no change.
Right.
In some ways, a little better. Yeah, but take the whole thing. But I'm thinking about talking to or looking at those people, so many people in that class, the black people, the black working class, for example, or the people in Appalachia, and they're thinking, what's my future and my grandchildren's life going to be like? Unless they can see some hope that something will change as years go by, then you're hearing my hopeless, helpless mantra.
Well, I think what they need is what we have. We're very blessed in this state to have Ron Wyden and Jeff Merkley. We need leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, isn't that where I met you, Wyden's Town Hall?
Mm-hmm.
Again?
Yeah, I think so.
He's on fire. Merkley's on fire. We have Bonamici. We have wonderful leaders. That's what we need all over the country. And we have to take back the House. We have to do that. And
how are you going to get the money out of politics to do that?
I think Bernie answered that. We need a message. We need small donations. But yeah, I mean, Citizens United. We have a lot of work to do.
So, you have any more ideas about how we can change things in Washington? Because what's going to go on in Washington and what's going on in this country, I'm thinking there's going to be a revolt, a revolution, or something of that nature. But I'm not just concerned about what's happening in America. I'm concerned about the effect that Trump's behavior is having on the West and the East and other areas of the world, and the long-term future, which I will be long gone, of the future of my grandchildren and grandchildren, such that we're obliged to live loving, kind lives so that our grandchildren can have big hearts, like that big heart that you demonstrate in your style of living.
Well, I have a more optimistic view, and I'll tell you what.
Okay, I'm ready.
And it gets back to the sociopathic personality. When I was the first year of medical school, or second year, the psych professor came out and talked about the sociopathic personality.
Mm-hmm.
Because we were medical students, we didn't know anything. We thought a crazy person was somebody that runs around and yelling and, yeah. No, he talked about a person that appeared normal, was charming, but inside had no remorse, no conscience, no conscience.
No empathy.
Right. Now, there's increasing, the science of evil, the science is moving forward and learning more and more things about evil is generated by the sociopathic personality. Most of these are men. There are some sociopathic women. Most are men. The incidence is maybe 1 in 100 births, they think.
Mm-hmm.
And in England, recently they've done MRI studies on criminals, guys that are chronic offenders. And they compare their brains to normal brains. And they're finding that their wiring is different in a sociopath. And what happens is, there's not many of them, but somebody without a conscience, if they get power, they can be like a Rupert Murdoch. They can create a media empire of evil where they just lie to people all day long, or Roger Ailes, or a Hitler, or a Stalin. Most of the evil is done by these sociopathic men.
How are you going to change Trump?
You can't. There's no treatment for the sociopathic. The treatment is jail, put them in jail, or force them out of office. Because there's no, I mean, you can appeal. How many people have appealed to him? There's no better nature there.
We're barking up the wrong tree.
But
we're running out of time. We're going to need to stop in a
But
few
anyways,
seconds.
that's why I'm an optimist, because most people are good. 98% of the people you meet, you work with, are good people. They have a conscience. It's just a few that don't that cause the problems. But they have to be resisted. Like Hitler, they have to be fought.
Look at that camera, and you have 30 seconds or 45 seconds to say some final message to the viewers, whatever comes to your mind, whether it's what we talked about tonight or anything else that you want to say to them. Mad as hell, Doctor.
Yeah, I think I'm an optimist, and that's based on what I've seen in the last few years since I retired, and how the country has responded to this horrible menace that we have now in the White House. How the people have risen up. And the guys that in the Mad as Hell Doctors, Mike Huntington, getting up every morning, quietly. Nobody knows who he is. And he's organized health care for all of Oregon. He's just a small little piece of the pie. But there's people like that everywhere, you know. And so that's why I'm an optimist about the future.
I see why, and I'm becoming more of an optimist after listening to you. So thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Don.
And we're going to have a public service announcement or two and before we sign off here. And the ACLU, one of my favorite organizations, the American Civil Liberties Union, there's a website for the ACLU. Go to that website and learn more about American Civil Liberties Union, because our civil liberties are in serious jeopardy. And without our civil liberties, this experiment in democracy is down the tubes. Oh, we got to end corporate personhood. Go to moveToAmend.org to show that corporations are not persons and money is not speech. And thanks again for watching. And remember, KFC, not Kentucky Fried Chicken, Dr. Don's KFC, kind, friendly, and charitable. Be kind. Be friendly and be charitable. To you too, especially you. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.